Hello everybody, welcome. It's a warm, bright moment in the sun here in San Francisco today. I'm out for a walk and I have some things to explore. I was thinking about these topics, reflecting on them prior to this morning. Well, in some senses for decades I've been reflecting on these things. But specifically, I'm always thinking about how to illustrate in relatively flat language what I have seen and what I've been shown and what I directly experienced firsthand with an array of other, humans would call them intelligences, but even that is not the right word at all. This is part of why I sometimes invent terms like transsentience. So, before I get started, I was listening kind of synchronistically, accidentally, so to speak, to a podcast between Joe Rogan and Michael Masters. Wow, what just happened? Was that a bird? Something flew right by my foot. Left foot at incredible speed. I don't even know if it was flying, right? And we have to think carefully about what is meant by these words, flying. So, I'm just going to do a quick recap here of the Dandelion toy, which is not exactly an attack on the supercontainer. So I'm not trying to say what everything is. In fact, really, I'm trying to say something about what everything isn't, or what everything can't be, rather than something about what I think it is. Negation is often vastly more powerful than assertion. It's the feminine aspect of these two principles. Assertion is, in this perspective, masculine in that it goes forth, penetrates, and transforms. Right? And negation draws in, mediates, and transforms.
I don't really care. I'll put in the...
So, in the Dandelion toy, which is a model of it's a toy of understanding the non-static nature of that which is they who are, we who are, otherwise known as existence. Reality, quote unquote, is a very minor subset of this that we take to be authoritative because it's compelling to our senses in the moment. People will say things like, you can think whatever you want, but if the vehicle strikes your body at a hard speed, you're going to know. Right? And this is an argument for the physical layer and its trenchant existence to us sensorially. And I'm not saying that layer doesn't exist. I'm saying that it's much like the shell on an egg. Right? If you saw an egg, you didn't know what eggs were, and you couldn't crush it in your hand, you would think, naturally, that it's solid all the way through. Right? I think it's a special version of a stone or something. Right? And so you might compellingly believe this is a solid. This is concrete. It's one thing, which is how we tend to think of reality. We think of it, we are trained to think of it as fundamentally physical. But I think it's impossible for that to be the case. So, I'm going to skim through the Dandelion toy very briefly. Imagine you're in a room with me, or someone, and the only significant feature, the room has two significant features. One, light doesn't enter the room from outside. Yes, we probably produce biophotons and things. Yes, you can't, there's no way to escape, actually, your connection with all that is. But what you can do is locally mediate it to reduce the influence from outside. You can't get rid of it. There's no chance of getting rid of it. There might be specialized ways in which you could inhabit something like another dimension or whatever, but we'll leave those aside. So we're in a room. The room is pitch black inside. The only feature of the room is a magical lamp, doesn't need electricity. And the only thing that's magic about it is we can do whatever we want. We can ask the lamp to turn on and off in any sequence that we like, and the lamp will obey us. So, I call this toy the Genji lamp. It's a precursor to the Dandelion toy, which I have some videos about on my channel and also an essay on my Medium page. So I ask the lamp to do the following. Turn on for a second, turn off for a second, turn on for half a second, turn off for a second, turn on for a quarter second, turn on for half a second. Excuse me, I got this mixed up. This always happens to me. Okay. Turn on for a second, turn off for a second, turn on for half a second, turn off for a second, turn on for a quarter second, turn off for half a second, turn on for an eighth of a second, turn off for a quarter second, and so on. So what you'll notice is that the lamp is, after the first iteration, always off twice the amount of time that it is on. And the precedence there is important. The off can be understood as negation, drawing in. The on can be understood as progeneration, going out. Breathing in can be understood as feminine, drawing in. Exhalation is masculine, going out. Or, if you prefer, yin, drawing in, yang, going out. So, ask the lamp to do this, and what we will see, I often ask people to imagine what they would see. And very few people, for some reason, I find this somewhat confusing, very few people understand the implications visually of what would occur. So, in this case, rather than asking you, though you're welcome to speculate, I'll just tell you. So in the first, 30 seconds or so, the lamp might be seen to be flickering. Right? It'll go on and off and on and off at an ever-increasing rate. And then it will look like it's strobing. But then, what will happen is that the lamp will simply appear to be on. And if we were not present during the instruction phase, and we didn't know about it, like, let's say we bring someone into the room 10 minutes into the process. By now, the lamp is going on and off at an incredibly fast rate. And after, think about how fast it would be 1,000 years later, 1,000,000 years later, billions of years later, right? It would be unimaginably fast. Be switching off and on possibly trillions of times per billionth of a second. In any case, if we bring someone into the room, after about 10 minutes, what they will see is simply that the lamp is on. They will not know it is flickering. There would be no reasonable way that I can imagine for them to detect its flicker biologically. Spiritually might be another matter, because the senses we have that we think of as spiritual, generally their nature is to transcend the seeming limitations of the physical layer. Right? And they do this not by movement in the physical layer or by the manipulation of the physical layer, but by sensing from above it or from within it. So in this toy, after a little while, the lamp would appear to be always on. I'll ask you to imagine that the on phase of the lamp corresponds to our sense of the permanence of the physical layer of our experience. The concreteness of the asphalt I'm presently walking on, absolutely real to my senses. If I fall down, I'm going to get a strong sense of its reality, quote unquote. That concreteness is analogous to the on phase of the lamp, and origin is analogous, that which is progenerating these effects instant to instant, is analogous to the off phase of the lamp, such that the universe, everything in the physical layer, is collapsing into unity an unimaginable amount of times per an unimaginably small amount of linear time. Trillions of trillions of trillions of a second in this toy. Although it doesn't have to be that fast. These are just suppositions of the toy. And the toy is meant to illustrate a principle. It's not meant to tell you what is true. It might be useful in determining what can't be true, or even in forging a more truthful position on the nature of phenomena than those we are usually encumbered by. Might be. Up to you. Find out. Check it out. Play with it in your mind. See what happens. Understanding and realization of this toy produces non-ordinary phenomena. So, if you were like, where's your proof? Well, I have no proof, but play with it and see what happens. It's just like drinking water. How can you prove to me that water is wet? Well, drink some. See what you think. Pour it on you. Is your skin wet after that? Okay, water's wet. Right? You have to have like a first-hand experience. I'm not trying to convince the thinking part of you of anything. I'm trying to give it something to play with, though. So, from this perspective, if you think about what's a good word for this? I mean, I have a private word. I call it the myarch, but that's a very specific. That's like your personal relational linkage with everything in the dandelion. And the dandelion can be thought of as a sphere. It's not a sphere. But to give you something familiar to you, it can be thought of as a sphere. And you can put physical reality either at the core of the sphere, right, little ball in the center, or you can put it at the epidermis or the shell of the sphere, right, the outer layer. We're going to do that one, but either way works. And both ways are interesting. They're a little different, even though the same principle is in play. All right, so in this toy, what is going on is that every seemingly distinct thing is meta, not distinct. It's actually being progenerated by the collapse and expansion of the dandelion, which is a sphere. So everything in the physical universe, the light goes off, everything collapses to unity. This doesn't mean, what this unity means is almost impossible to explain. It isn't simple unity. It's something like pure undifferentiated potential with aspects of a kind of memory of both all previous transits and all previous future transits from unity into distinction. So this is something extremely transcendental to how we usually think. It's not simple unity. This is important. So trillions of times per second, or trillionth of a second, whatever. Everything that you see is collapsing into this meta-unity, and then the same number of times, but less. You see, in the toy, the collapse has precedence over the expression because the lamp is always off twice the amount of time that it is on. And this aspect of the toy is meant to illustrate a feature where the unity has precedence to distinction. Now there's a lot of problems with this toy because what time means here transforms dramatically from how we think about it in the physical layer. So the physical layer is like the shell on the outside of the sphere, and it's produced by histories of relations at the other layers inside the sphere. And there's different ways to think of these layers. And all of the layers have, well, they are not things, they are beings. And they are not mere beings, they are transcendentally ennatured principles that the closest thing we have in our lexicon to these is something like beings or entities, angels, gods, etc. However, I don't want you to think of them as angels or gods. Although it's fine for speculation, I just don't want you to lock in on, oh, here's what they are, right? Because what they are is actually impossible to derive. And the reason it's impossible to derive is that they are not single-valued entities or forces or principles at all. As you travel from the skin of the dandelion through the layers that lead to unity, what you get are meta-positions over identity, like superpositions in a way in QFT or quantum mechanics. So there's different ways to think of the consecutive spheres inside the sphere, beyond the surface going toward the center. From the center outward, you have something, and these again are just toys, I'm not telling you what they are. There's a variety of important ways to think about the different layers. At the core, you have something absurd to name, best left unnamed, but I described it as pure undifferentiated potential with facets of memory of historical relational lineages and futurial relational lineages of that of which it is born and that of which it is comprised. And then as you travel out from there, you can think of the next layer as the impossible, that which cannot be, yet somehow is, in the dandelion. And at the next layer it would be something like the improbable. And the next layer, the probable, the probabilistic. And at the next layer, the semi-deterministic. And then at the next layer, the physical. And there's a layer above the physical which has something to do with the cognition of physicalized beings. Minds at that layer. Now all of those layers are being generated moment to moment by the core and its relationship with the outside. In the same way that the outside, the physical layer in which we dwell, so to speak, we are actually in all the layers, we're just not aware of them. And this explains all psi phenomena. Right? There's such thing as telepathy. Minds are the same thing, a couple of layers beneath or within the layer that we take as real. They're one mind, or they are more than a single mind, more than merely a single mind. So what's going on is the physical layer is being produced instant to instant by this collapse and expansion of this dandelion. And most of, quote, reality, and that which exists, they who are, we who are, is in the other layers. Right? This layer is like a reflection or an embodiment of the qualities, principles, characteristics, personae, minds of all the other layers. And in this layer, there's a lot of conflict. As you go from the interior of the dandelion toward the outside, various forms of polarization become more likely or more entrenched. So if you could sort of, what's the right word? If you could change your frequency, so to speak, right? Change the refresh, your perception of the refresh rate of reality, you could instantly travel anywhere in time-space. You could become multiple beings in different places in time-space. You could participate in vast arrays of minds that are not yours, and many of which are not now human and never will become human. Just a little ways away from us, closer than your own hand, are entire universes that are nothing like what we imagine, and they are not even like what is imagined in religions. Quantum physics is mostly about the discovery of the inner layer that is just before semi-determinism. Right? And the features of our layer, not all features, that appear deterministic are not actually deterministic in the way we imagine them. Though, if you test them over and over and over again, you'll confirm your suspicion that they are purely deterministic. They are not. There's no such thing as that. So this is the dandelion toy, in short. Thank you for bearing with me through that long dissertation. I hope you find it useful. I find it shocking. It literally, if we take it somewhat seriously, it means that almost everything we believe about identity, nature, forces, cause and effect, origin, life and death, minds, all of this is based on a misapprehension that is trenchant by displacing our expectations about the physical continuity of objects in our layer onto all phenomena, the universe itself. It's just a physical machine. There's no chance of that being true. That is formally impossible. And also unfalsifiable. And I say that to emphasize that it is not scientific at all to think that way. And that kind of thinking is a result of the eviction of anything inexplicable from the expectation space, the speculation space, the insight space of research. And we should be clear that probably 99.99 with a lot of nines % of that which is inexplicable. Okay? And part of why it's inexplicable is that it is pre-formal. Right? It comes before the layer that we are cleaving to in our suppositions, and the toys that we make that we don't treat as toys, we treat them as domineering, authoritarian, ontological fascism. Right? We are told what not to think or believe, or suspect, or perceive, or become aware of, or experience. And then, in the tiny little resulting prison, we build machines. What a surprise. Right? To reacquire some piece of what was lost in the first eviction. Yeah. This is absurd and tragic and cruelly limits human ability, perception, communality, development, what we sometimes think of as evolution, behaviorally, relationally, cognitively. So now I want you to imagine something. I want you to imagine that you can travel somehow a little ways into the dandelion so that you cross a couple of those layers. And let's say, again, there's different ways to think of the layers, very useful different ways, so you'll have to imagine those, so I'm not going to lecture on them at the moment. But imagine that you can travel, you can subtract yourself from the physical layer and travel in awareness toward the core, right, of the dandelion. The first thing you would realize if you traveled even one layer inward from the physical is that our assertions about identity and continuity are nonsensical. They're not real, they're not true. They are extremely compelling because of how we displace our expectations from the physical experiences onto all phenomena. That is a catastrophic displacement, unjustifiable. In almost every applicable scope, with some notable exceptions, those being relatively trivial. You want to connect two pieces of wood with a nail. Not a problem there. But that urge can become so compelling that it can snuff your world. So you want to be careful about that displacement. Really careful. Ancient peoples were well aware of matters resembling this and had methods and protocols in language and thought to ensure they did not make this mistake, especially communally, because it was lethal to relation, right? To communal sensing, communal intelligence, communal integrity and coherence. And this is what was absolutely, primordially, not to be lost at any cost for peoples throughout the development of our species. And they had direct experiences of other layers of the dandelion, just as we do. We mostly evict them via skepticism. Left hemispheric like, no, I want a graspable thing, bruh. Give me something I can get a trenchant grip on. So you can see the displacement here. I want the cognitive equivalent of physical compulsion. This is what proof means. Right. I want to be compelled to see what must be the case. And the only things that can be like that must be the case, are displacements from the physical expectation of the continuity of identity, structure, location, temporality, and so forth over the entire field of phenomena. And again, there's a useful scope for this kind of thing. But most of our natures and potentials and awareness die if the scope is limited to that. They shrivel up and become husks. And the left hemisphere-like way of being in the world loves husks. It's his favorite thing. It wants everything to be turned into husks. Machines are these kinds of husks. So are ideologies. Religions often become this kind of a husk. Capitalism, communism, these are husk processes. Husking. Turn everything into a husk. Subjugate the people in the world to the needs of the preservation of this husk, and burn the planet down. Burn the living beings down. Burn the humans down. With humans, right? Use humans to burn the humans down. I won't get into the origin of these processes, but they are intrinsic to disconnection in the physical layer from the other layers. Right? Normally, that's almost impossible, but the human species has a very unusual history that renders it not merely possible, but likely. So that we become captured by shadows of what's missing. Right? We become captured by the shadows of absences that appear to us as presences. And this is what our common expectation space is like. So imagine that you could travel inward toward unity in the dandelion. And you don't have to get all the way. Right? You just need to get one or two layers underneath what is generating the physical. And imagine that you could see from there. You could see into the physical from there. So similarly, in a more physical model, imagine that you travel above the earth, far above the earth. An airplane is good enough, right? Suddenly now you are in a superposition over the point-like position you would otherwise inhabit on the surface of the earth. And notice that if you're in an airplane and you're traveling a very long distance, let's say to another hemisphere or whatever, strangely, and somewhat mechanically in our case, because we're just measuring time linearly, you're going to change time zones, right? So you're literally going to go in the airplane, and time will either advance or shift according to which way you travel or where you go, so that if you pass X number of hours in the airplane, when you land, it's going to be a completely different time from where you were, plus or minus X, the travel time. So notice that moving above something, even in the human ridiculous representational framework, results in temporality shifts. Right? But imagine you go to space, right? I'm not going to get into the whole like traveling near light speed stuff and how that changes time, twin paradox and all that, light cones. But imagine that you go up into space in a spaceship and you look down on the earth, and what you see from that upper position is unity, right? You see, oh, this is one place, right? It's all one place. It's delicate, it's vulnerable, it's tiny. Space-time is unimaginably vast. The earth is this little puddle, and you realize, oh my God, it's so vulnerable and delicate and beautiful and one thing. Why are the people conflicting with each other down there? They're insane, right? So if you could travel above, you naturally see unity. And from up there in space, what time is it where you are? Well, you're not down on the surface of the earth, so time zones don't really project up into space. What is your temporal coordinate up there? Now, we might project from down here up there and say, well, we launched from Cape Canaveral, we're going to go by Cape Canaveral time, and so we just, sync the clocks and move the ship, and this kind of thing. But that's, representational temporality. That's also a fiction. I don't have time to go into the nature of time today. Sometime soon I will. So if you go above the surface of the earth far enough, your relationship with identity transforms. And the reason it does so, partly, is because effectively you're in a superposition above that which you might ordinarily inhabit, which is a point-like space on the surface of the Earth sphere. Right? And this is the same thing in the dandelion, except it's inverse. And I mean, it doesn't have to be inverse. If you put unity at the surface of the sphere and distinction at the center, then you have a situation like time-space, like looking down at Earth from space. Okay, this is getting tricky. See if I can pull this off. This is very daring of me. Somewhat dangerous, because these topics are effectively forbidden in many ways. All right. So imagine that, not necessarily through the aegis of a machine. You don't need a machine for this. You are the dandelion. Right? It is your extended body. This is what I mean by the myarch. The myarch is your extended body, your relational, historical, futurial body in the structure of the dandelion. And the other layers are more structured near the surface and less structured toward the center. But when the structure becomes less, another feature that is better than structure emerges within each layer. Sort of the antithesis of structure, yet something like intelligent metastructure, intelligent before of structuring, or transcendent before of structuring, transcendental before of structuring. So the idea of superposition is very important here, because as you travel from the surface of the dandelion toward the center, you are enhancing varieties of situations that resemble superposition or are analogous to it. Because you are de-distinguishing as you travel from, through the layers from the surface toward the core. And humans are natural travelers in the dandelion, unless we are trained that we can't be. In which case we cleave to the physical layer and believe this is the only thing that is real. This is why we fear death. There's really no such thing as death in this model. In fact, death, life and death invert, right? Life becomes much more trap-like. Death, generally, much more like liberation. Or participation in the unity, right? Heaven, so forth. Direct participation in all the layers of the unity and its expressions. So if you travel above the surface of the earth, you begin to see unity. This is not surprising. It seems rather natural, but we don't usually understand it this way. Some of us do, of course. There's always exceptions to my critical declarations about generalities. So I want you to imagine if you traveled into the structure of the unity, the first thing you would realize is that linear time is not true. It's relatively trenchant at the physical layer, relatively, not completely. All kinds of people have experiences of radical transformations of linear time. The most common of those is called dreaming. Nearly everyone experiences this almost every time they fall asleep, whether they remember having this experience or not. Exceptions noted. So obviously, we have direct experience of non-linear, non-mechanical temporality every day. We just usually dismiss it. Which is kind of hilarious because it's like the tip of my pinky dismissing my arm. That arm doesn't exist. I am the only thing that exists at the tip, right here, the fingerprint. Yeah, that's me. In a sense, all beings are like the fingertips of the dandelion in the physical layer. One being in many forms, places, and times, right? Not two, and not two or more, right? One, first. This doesn't get rid of distinction, it reconnotates it, so that all distinctions are expressions of a fundamental unity that is transcendental to that which it is possible to think. Though we can invent toys that allow us to see features of the situation in a new and compelling way. So all of the paranormal phenomena have to do with situations in which the physical, seemingly linear temporal layer experience glitches, right? We could call them glitches. They're not actually glitches. The glitching metaphor is from the skeptical perspective that expects the continuity of physical time-space. Non-ordinary creatures, events, situations, lost time, quote unquote. All of these are intrusions of the other layers into our familiar layer, violating our expectation space because we're compelled to believe in static, continuous identity and so forth. Not necessarily by language, but by how we use language, or how we are used by language. In this case, the tool has us, right? People don't have ideas, ideas have people. People don't have souls, souls have people. People don't have minds, minds have people. Minds peopleate. Right? So all of this preamble is leading up to what I'll speak about next, which is the UFO UAP thing. And I want to be clear, very clear, that there is no chance that the UFO UAP thing is one thing. In fact, the only things that are really a single sort of separable process or thing are artificial objects like forks and spoons, or artificial situations like what happens in our houses. Because in these we evict most of the real, most of the true, most of the holy, and instead we play with representations of what's missing. Isn't that surprising? Turns out that most of human psychology is a problem with absences treated as presences, and responded to as presences. Often, quote, negative presences, but also positive presences, right? Money appears positive, actually negative, from many of the most important perspectives. So the UFO and UAP phenomena, which is a branch of the entire library of non-ordinary phenomena, or paranormal phenomena, or supernatural phenomena, or transcendental phenomena.
So it means that the trenches have you today?
If you want to change
Just being respectful of the people I'm walking past, not speaking over them. So the entire realm of the paranormal, the UFO UAP phenomenon is a branch of it, and certainly we have distinguishably unique, broad arrays of distinguishably unique phenomena going on there, and a bunch of theories about them. People from other worlds, bio-nanodrones, right? Space life itself, right? The humans don't think that there are life forms that travel around in space in the physical layer. I think this is wildly unlikely. The physical layer is a lot like an ocean. It might not be regular organisms, but rather a metaposition over physical organisms that travels around in space, much like sperm travel, you know, in a mammalian body, for example, producing a progeneration of beings. So there is something that is analogous. You know, if you think of the syllogism, X is to living worlds, and Z as bees are to flowers and honey, there is something that is X. Yeah? There is something that instantaneously connects all stars and living worlds. I usually call this the dweller in the between. And there is something that in all layers of slow time also connects stars and living worlds. It's not even connection. It's instancings of the characters of the modes of unity available in all layers differently. The idea of connection means that we start out with separate things, and that's not what's going on here. We're starting out with unified things from the perspective of this toy.
Car, he's giving a good bark as we're driving by, because they live across the street as well. Oh, I'm sorry, Papa. I'm sorry.
I think most part
So you have people from other planets in traveling machines. Almost certainly some branch of the phenomena is like this. All of these people that travel in time-space are almost certainly aware of something very closely resembling this dandelion toy. And they understand how to manipulate it the way that we understand how to manipulate, for example, hard electricity, which really you should mostly avoid exposure to if you're a biological creature. That shit'll mess you up. And you don't have to touch it to be messed up by it. You just need to be surrounded by it. In any case, all kinds of phenomena, right? Phenomena that are more or less spiritual, phenomena that are more or less semi-physical, phenomena that are probably mostly technological, but I want you to understand that there's a position above and before technology that is superior to any technology. In the same way, minds are superior to thoughts, right? And beings are superior to minds. Yeah? All throughout the dandelion, you have this hypostasizing, this creation of lesser reflections or embodiments of features of the dandelion. Every organism is thus. Every situation is thus. This is partly why you hear people say things like there are no accidents. It doesn't mean the universe is a simulation. It means it's a unity, fundamentally. And as you travel from the unity into the realms of distinction and the modes of distinction, the linkages to the unity remain. You can't get rid of that. There's no way to evict it except in thought or language. You can kind of evict it in behavior, I guess, as well, if you're human. If you're not human, it's pretty hard to accomplish that. So then you have what? Transdimensional beings, and so forth. All kinds of things in the UFO, UAP. Paranormal tree, right? Astral travel, out-of-body experiences, mind sight, telepathy, bilocation, teleportation, time bilocation, time multi-location, touch healing, resurrection of the dead, moving of mountains, right? Travel to other worlds without a vehicle at all, without anything we would recognize as a vehicle. It turns out that the organs of our quote-unquote soul, a couple of those are extremely concerned with travel. And those are also concerned with learning or anamnesis, unforgetting, realization, transcendence of the prison-like trap layers that arise for humans on our world and impede our awareness, transferring it into its absences by representing them to us and claiming their priority. Hey! And their authority. So you've imagined traveling above the surface of the earth, and you see how that necessarily convinces you of the unity of the planet and the people. You see one unity from space. And yeah, you only see one side of it because you have a perspective from physical space into physical space. But if you rise up, that perspective transforms dramatically as you rise from the surface of the earth into the near surface, into the atmosphere, into the upper atmosphere, into space, just like the layers of the dandelion in reverse. Right? If we suppose that unity is at the center. And all phenomena have these characteristics, right? You can rise above the singular toward the collective. This is why we have the idea of species. Oh, that is a white sage plant, a member of all the white sage plant beings. Though we usually think of them as organisms or plants. Wildly misunderstanding the nature of what is going on there. So imagine that you have some kind of, I'm going to call it an intelligence, but it's almost certainly not an intelligence. It's a transcendence. You have beings who are possibly not embodied or mostly not embodied. They may even have physical bodies in some, or something resembling a physical body, but their primary point of presence is not in that body. It is in a layer of the dandelion. And in this sense, the body of such a being does not have a distinct identity. It's more like a prosthesis, or in a sense, a biovirtualization of the transcendence, and this may be a collective transcendence that it quote-unquote belongs to, or is an expression of. And that may involve nothing like technology. There are things so far beyond technology that if you were aware of them or could play in that space, you would never build a machine. Never. You'd avoid that at every cost. Or if you did build a machine, what you would do is you would build a machine, do a thing with it, and dissolve it back into pure potential, rather than sustaining it over time. So you would cause a machine to coalesce. You would then traverse the mission space along with the machine, and upon your return, all of that would dissolve back into potential. Because what you want is access to potential, not continuously existing static objects. Those things have a biological, relational, and intelligence form of drag. They reduce the capacity for novelty and unity in any space where they arise and persist. So they evict the other layers of the dandelion through a form of compression. And it becomes compelling to preserve them. Everyone wants to preserve their home and their car, so to speak. Not everyone, but you know what I mean. So I want you to imagine with me then that the humans have entirely the wrong idea here about UFOs and UAP in general. We pretty much have the wrong idea about everything. Exceptional humans or cohorts noted. And they think they're going to find out what UFOs are. But UFOs are not a what. In fact, UFOs are the before of what's, and the above of what's, and the beyond of what's, fundamentally. Now, if it turns out that we're looking at a situation where, you know, beings from another planet have a machine and come to Earth to study or mediate, then that's more or less a what. But even those beings, if their machine travels in space-time, almost certainly produce a superposition in which they themselves are superpositional. So during travel, they are not what's, even if emerging into the physical layer again from something resembling a superposition, they become more what-like. But a superposition in this sense, a position in one of the other layers, you know, a localization in one of the other layers of the dandelion, does not have static identity. This is not one of its characteristics. It's mostly in potential and very partly in static identity. And this is explanatory of a bunch of features of common encounters with UFOs and UAPs. Silence is a very strange feature. Why is there silence everywhere? They don't just say, "I didn't hear the craft," though sometimes they do say that, or they also say, "I heard a sound." But very commonly there's this pervasive silence, and it's not because everything stopped making noises. It's because the entire local situation has been transformed in such a way, possibly temporally, that sounds that you would usually hear have been so lowered in frequency that they become infrasound, or even something below that, right? It's a frequency transformation locally. And if the frequency is being lowered, the temporal heartbeat is probably also lowered, and this would account for lost time, if we're trying to account for things. Also, we have lots of reports of people seeing a light that goes through a series of transformations, or an orb, which is a non-physical thing that goes through a series of transformations and then physicalizes. This is descent through the layers of the dandelion as seen from our layer. Much like in flatland, if a sphere comes into flatland, where everything is, what, 2D, I think? Because lined land is 1D, right? So in flatland, if a sphere passes through the plane, what you will see is a dot become a circle, become a never bigger circle, and then shrink back through circular, positions to a dot again. If it were to pass from up to down through the plane, or from down to up. This is crucially important. This metaphor, Edward Abbott was trying to show us something about thinking and the universe, not merely about geometry. In a sense, he was trying to alert us to the existence of something resembling the dandelion. And the dandelion toy is a child of Abbott's Flatland toys. And also Rudy Rucker's toys in his book, The Fourth Dimension. Fabulous book, strongly recommend it. One of my favorites. I think that's what it's called. So if you see something that starts out as a point, becomes a glowing orb, goes through some transformations in color, right? This is obviously transformations in frequency, so to speak, right? The iterations. You can imagine that it's pulsing near the rate of the dandelion in the beginning, and it slows that pulse to something resembling the rate locally here in the physical layer until it actually physicalizes. Now, whatever there physicalizes is not the what, right? The physicalization is not the what. The what is the transcendental aspects coupled to specific features of the physicalizations, and what is, seen and or touched and or reported by experiencers in this toy. This is just a toy. It's a perspectival toy. So trying to figure out, what these phenomena are is relatively confused, because you're projecting the expectations of static physicalized identity, which are also wrong, right? Mostly wrong, onto something that cannot be that way and will never be that way. You're looking at something like the fingertip of a phenomena that is mostly non-physical as we understand it, and belongs, quote unquote, to the other layers of the dandelion and their relationships and the processes by which they can become physicalized in our layer. And this is probably explanatory of a broad array of non-ordinary phenomena, including paranormal abilities, right? This is just, mind sight is really just moving from the layer in which minds appear to be distinct, remote viewing too, toward the center of the dandelion where the mind pervades over time and space, naturally. It's like going up a ladder. The bottom of the ladder is your normal experience of mental expectation and familiarity. You just move like one rung up that ladder, and now you can see from multiple positions at once. And so where are you? Are you the physicalization? Are you the seeing? Where are you? See, the human beings are the same in a sense. They are the same thing, quote unquote, not things, but they're the same class of phenomena in a much slower and confused expression trap, right? So that our awareness is mostly stuck here in the physical layer most of the time. And thus, when people experience directly, not so much children, but adults, when they experience mind sight, almost invariably, Right? They can see with their eyes closed. Someone's holding a colored square behind them, and they can correctly guess that color every single time without problem, or even read a book that's open behind their head. If someone experiences this, if they're a child, they're just going to get really excited. But if they're an adult, they're going to have to cope, almost invariably, with a bunch of features that defend the static physicalist ontologies and expectation spaces that we are trained to presume and obey. So you have, all throughout human experience, have these wild, non-ordinary experiences, and the people themselves will tell you, I didn't believe it. It was happening right in front of me, and I did not believe it. I experienced mind sight. I was talking to someone who teaches this skill, and she was like, adults, and even myself, when I first experienced it, I thought, oh, this is some kind of cheating. This is a trick. This can't be real. It can't be true. So it's like actually tasting a peach that you're eating and thinking, nah, this isn't right. There's no such thing as this. This is forbidden to be. It simply cannot be. This would be hilarious if it wasn't so tragic. Like in a comic book, we would laugh and scoff and, rolling on the floor, so to speak. But in our minds, the expectation space of the ontological traps that are visited on us is very compelling. It's so compelling that it will directly evict experiences that violate its authoritative grasp on thought, expectation, and awareness. And this is very profound. And this is something we can mend, right? We can ameliorate this together. And it's crucial that we do so. Our world, our future, the history of life on this world depends on the humans becoming able to do this together in ways as beautiful and compassionate and altruistic as they are seemingly exotic. The whole thing of exoticism is backwards, right? What's exotic is having an ontology that evicts your faculties and experience from access. That's exotic. The other stuff, that's natural. The stuff that challenges that, that's natural. It's nature. That's truth, the spirit of being. Transcendentally, embodying itself in every being and relationship with love and awareness and concern and heroic motivations. So now here's the other thing. If you are beings or a being, if you are a collective that can embody, travel from the non-physical layers into the physical layers, you are, to various degrees, you are not time traveling, right? That's a myth of the physical layer. Right, linear time, traveling back or forth in it. No, you can travel above it, just like you can travel above the surface of the earth. Right? You can travel above linear temporality, and from there you can see the entirety. If the universe has a beginning, you see that. If it has something like an end, which is not its death, but rather the extent of the dandelion's pulsings over time, in a sense, the physical layer is the end of time. And the dandelion's core is the beginning of time. So for beings who can achieve a superposition over physicalization, they naturally achieve a temporal superposition, and they can descend from that temporal position, not merely to some position in linear time, but almost certainly to multiple simultaneous positions in linear time. Right? So from this perspective, okay, this is going to get crazy. So let's say you have some people in Texas, they're out in the field with their cows, and they see this orb, and it becomes a flashing light, and it goes through some color changes, and everything goes silent, and then they see a huge craft, all glowing, another weird phenomena associated with it. And they're out of their minds with awe and fear, and confusion, because this violates everything they've been trained to think. It's supposed to be impossible. And what I'd like you to imagine is that that same instance of that craft is present, right? The beings in that craft are trans-present temporally. So the craft is landing in, year 1000. It's landing 50 million years ago in a different part of the Earth. It's landing in multiple quote-unquote landing, right? It's materializing in multiple simultaneous positions throughout time. And so what that causes is linkage. Those people are experiencing a context that is translocally temporal, right? It is not locally temporal. And by experiencing a translocally temporal context, they are being lifted out of the physical layer just by being associated with that phenomena. Both beings are transformed, right? The entire structure of time and relation is transformed contextually by the appearance of what we think of as an anomaly, but is actually the opposite, right? The physical layer is the anomaly, not the transcendental, from this perspective. So beings who can achieve a superposition have the capacity to be multi-present, and some aspects of that capacity are experienced by people who encounter this phenomena. So they're lifted out of local temporality, but they're not, since you can't see time, and time is part of how you see, it's very difficult to notice this. Now, I have had an experience like this, not an experience, I've had long cascades of experience of something resembling this. And the toys that I'm making here are the result of what I have seen. Not with my eyes, sort of with my soul, or with my mind's origin. Now similarly, if you move up above the humans in ideation or conception, and you get a metaposition over that, this is the birth of what we think of as philosophy.
For my MBA. So I came back.
He know you?
No.
Why you walk like that?
Just excited.
I thought the dog knew you because you standing right there.
I think the dog saw the chance to get up off the ground, right, and be with his person at her level, right? Just like we try to do, right? We want to get with our people, the people, at their level, right?
What do you mean by that? Go further into that.
So, normally the dog is down here, right?
Oh, you saying you feel more comfortable, like
like you
down in a chair?
Yeah, and also your people, they come from Africa.
Yeah.
My people, they come from here. But when we're together, we're on the same level. Yeah, we see eye to eye, heart to heart. Right, that's very powerful, that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, the dog wants to come up and be up here where...
What's your name?
Darren.
Darren? Jerome.
Nice to meet you, Jerome.
Nice to meet you, Darren.
Yeah.
What's up? You know about Greenpeace?
Oh, yeah.
What you know about Greenpeace?
I've been following Greenpeace, I'm 60-something.
Okay.
And I've been following them since 1969.
Okay, nice.
So like I remember when Greenpeace bought a Coast Guard cutter, and they filled the bow with concrete. And Captain Paul Watson, who now heads up the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society, he was the captain of the Rainbow Warrior.
Okay.
And they rammed and sank whaling ships. Straight up. They would warn them off, And if they didn't leave, they would sink them and rescue the sailors. And then the French in the late
Did they go to
70s.
jail for that?
Say again?
Did they go to jail for that?
No.
How did they get away with it?
It's very complex. How do you see? This is how Paul Watson gets away with what the Sea Shepherd does. He's beyond all nations.
Yeah.
He has a navy. He has his own navy, right? So they don't belong to any nation. You got to capture them to prosecute them. But what the French government did is they hired some mercenaries
Okay.
to sink the Rainbow Warrior when it was in port in Spain,
I see.
right? And then the Rainbow Warrior was no more. Did you know that story?
I didn't know that story.
That's a powerful story.
That is a powerful
I
story.
believed in that ship. That ship was important to me.
Yeah, and it's. I've been on the job for 4 days now.
Oh yeah.
So, but before this, I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I used to laugh at tree huggers. Not so much so, but just because I was ignorant of what they actually does.
Right.
I'm like, man, why are you trying to save a tree?
Yeah.
But, you know, I know that Greenpeace was actually like, you know, do far more than that.
Yeah.
And the reason behind it all.
Yeah, like
You know?
educate the people about what living beings are and why we're all one. This is a tiny little planet, man.
Yep.
You mess up the environment,
Yep.
you got no human future here.
And you know what's funny about that? You know, you ever see movies like the aliens moving from another planet, from their own planet because it's messed up to our planet? We're doing this. Maybe we're the aliens. We're messing up our planet.
No, we are around here. You see an animal, it knows that's an alien.
Yeah.
Right? Those things just kill for no reason. Right? They kill just for killing.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing in nature that does that.
Yeah.
Well, maybe cats a little bit now.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, we are the aliens here in this sense. It's so funny you mention that because I'm doing a recording right now.
Okay.
Yeah, about this topic.
Oh, really?
Right? Yeah, this specific topic.
Oh.
It started out with maybe we are the aliens, right? Maybe the aliens are us from the future or something like this, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, cause like waking up to this, it was an eye awakening to me.
Me too.
It was like it's real serious,
Yeah.
and people don't realize it. You're gonna wake up one day and everything is gonna be plastic. Like you know about all the microplastics of there, of course. You know.
Yeah.
I started looking up in that. It was 8 out of 85 restaurants, fast food restaurants, 84 of them have plastic in them.
Yeah.
And it's like, am I going to go to a restaurant and eat plastic? Yeah, because I kind of got to.
Right.
Because I ain't got no choice.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
understand?
Yeah.
So it's like, what they're doing, the big corporations is pretty much saying F you. Just like, have you know about the chicken noodle soup guy?
Yeah, a little bit, but tell me what you know.
Well, that guy was on recording saying, yeah, I know this is poor people food.
Right.
This is dangerous.
Yeah.
And I will never eat that.
Right, or give it to my family or anything. Yeah.
And it's like, man, I thought chicken noodle soup was good. Do it when you get sick. You go to the store and buy that. I just bought that for last year. I just bought that for my wife because she was sick.
Yeah.
I was, you know,
It is comforting and nourishing if it's
Yeah.
good soup.
Yeah.
But if it's poison,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like they're telling us F you, and you're still gonna buy it anyway.
right.
But what I like about Greenpeace, it actually goes out there. They actually go out there and stop these big corporations
Yeah.
from harming us.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
That's noble.
Yeah, it's
That's
very
virtuous.
noble.
Yeah.
Yep. But do you know? I'm sure I know you know about the lawsuit that's going on. Yeah. So the lawsuit, 600. They suing us for 600 million because we was part of the that protest about when they was trying to in Trump administration the first time they was trying to go on indigenous lands and they was trying to go into the sacred land and build the oil
Pipelines.
and the pipeline. So they did that. We was a part of the protest, but we didn't orchestrate it, but we were just a part of it, supporting it.
Yeah.
And now they suing us, but ACLU is actually picking that up. And, so hopefully, we don't have to pay that. Because if we have to pay, well, actually it's $300 now, $300 million now. But if we have to pay that still, it's a wrap.
Yeah.
We only raised up like 40 mil since 2023.
I see.
We only raised up like 40 million. So, Lord willing, you know, that we, you know, get enough people signed up this year. That's why we out here heavy, like people on every corner. Trying to get people to sign up, man. So if you know anybody, make sure they, you know, aware of this and what's going on.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
You got it.
I know you already been donating and stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I support environmental organizations with my own work and sometimes monetarily.
Okay. Yeah, right now we doing for, you know, just $1 a day actually. We're doing $1 a day. If you want to get signed up, that'd be.
I'll give that some thought, but not right this minute.
Okay, I understand. I hear you. You know, but I don't got to tell you what's going on. So
No.
it ain't really nothing more to tell you about how urgent it is.
Well, no, you know, everyone knows something unique that other people don't know.
Yeah.
There's things you know that I've never encountered, right? So I find it very important to listen to what you have to say and what you find compelling and what moves your heart.
Yeah, and it definitely do. Like I said, before I worked here, I didn't realize how serious the climate is going.
Yeah, no, even for me over the span of my life, right? It's like a series of awakenings, more and more and more over time, because I'm paying attention. Right? I care about the living beings. I care about this world. I care about everything that is alive here very deeply. You know, not just because of some idea. Yeah. Right? Like love. Yeah. You know, these trees, these are my heart. You know, they just look green. It looks like it's over there. It's in here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I got to go, my brother.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All blessings to you.
Good talking to you.
And you. Good luck with everything you're up
but
to.
But if you do decide to, you know, try to do it. If you do decide to like donate monthly, you know, try to do it with a canvas that's on the street.
Copy that.
Yeah, because if you
supports
do it
you.
It ain't, and it's not no selfish reason. It's they get the data to bring us out here. If they don't get the data to, you know, then they won't send us out here.
Copy that.
You know what I mean?
All right, brother.
All right, man.
Good to see you. All
good
blessings. Yeah, you too. Okay, I kind of lost my train of thought there. So a woman was walking her dog, and there was a rising circular ledge, and the dog jumped up on the ledge and followed the woman as it rose until the dog was at the same height as her face. And then there was an exchange between the dog and the woman. It's very profound. So that's how that conversation got started. That gentleman was wondering what is motivating the dog, right, to do this, to rise up. And this is relevant to the topic at hand, right? Because in a sense, when something comes from the dandelion into our layer, we are lifted up near, or lifted in, rather, near its layer. So, in a sense, traveling into the dandelion means rising up above the appearance of physically distinct, quote-unquote, separate beings and phenomena into the layers where that separation is more transparent, right? The unity pervades and the separation becomes more less, sort of has a lower frequency of pulse, right? So here the frequency of pulse is very convincing of distinction and separation. A few layers into the dandelion, you could think of that as above where we are, perspectively. That is vastly less trenchant, right? Unity becomes obvious. So if you hear beings in in an encounter make a claim like, "We are you," this doesn't necessarily mean we are humans from the future, though in some cases it might. But they have no way to even talk about these things with us because there is no future for them, in a sense. Although some branches of the phenomena may have some kind of a relationship with linear time, but I suggest that that relationship is not primary, right? It's an aspect. So when you hear that these beings are concerned with biology and so forth. And there's lots of interesting arguments or toys and speculations about all of the phenomena. More than likely what they're doing, if you imagine a linear timeline, right, from the beginning of the Earth to the end of the Earth, they might be simultaneously branching into the entire span of that timeline at the same time from a position above time. And this would naturally produce all kinds of unusual effects in human minds, bodies, souls, whatever you like. Now these are just a series of toys, and this is what I was reflecting on last night and today when I was listening to Michael Masters and Joe talking. You know, even Joe, you hear him really come down on the side of skepticism and say, you know, I totally want to believe, but all this stuff is just people talking. Well, yeah, that's the same thing that happens when sailors see dolphins and they come back and they try to tell people the ocean's full of giant whales and intelligent creatures, and the people on the land go, nah, I never seen that. No such thing, right? You can't dismiss I mean, you can, but it's unwise to dismiss the experience of, you know, millions of people. Wow. Wow. I'm going to take a pause here for a minute and I'll return to wrap up. Stay with me.
No, you have to.
Again, it's not my intention to try to convince anyone of anything. This is a perspectival exploration. However, I have high confidence that these toys are far more useful and profound than the rather crappy toys that we are given to think and expect and see and define, to de-infinitize ourselves, right? All beings are naturally infinite, and the localization that appears before us belies that transcendental verity. It's not about arguments. It's not a debate. This isn't a courtroom. I'm not adjudicating the facts. Rather, I'm looking very carefully into what produces the, quote, facts, unquote, with which we have become, unfortunately, so familiar that we cannot see into their origins and the purposes underlying their profusion and domination of human beings on our world. You are just like the UFOs. When they say we are you, they don't necessarily, they might, but they don't necessarily mean we are time-traveling humans from the future. Future. They could easily mean all beings are one being. You are an aspect of us, we are an aspect of you. We are from that which progenerates you moment to moment, and you transform us in relation with you. They are mutually transforming from different layers in the Dandelion or the Myark. So these are some of my thoughts and reflections for today. I'm very grateful to have had this time to learn and explore and play in the fields of origin and wonder, insight, and creative reflection. Very grateful for all of the people who listen And my 3 Patreon supporters, much love to all of you. Super appreciate you. And those of you who comment, question, criticize, and interact with the media that I produce. I wish you beauty, liberation, insight, wonder, playful explorations, adventure, heroic moments, amazing dreams, and the fulfillment of the promise of your human incarnation this time around. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to learning together again very soon. Bye-bye for now.